Radio.
Most are afraid of unknown depths, skirting shores thinking world flat. And with the island girls in celebration of new religion. Nobody led me or said this way. I sailed alone on makeshift raft with wind as companion. Prayed for deliverance, confidence enough to assess new disposition. Seekers of lost paradise may seem fools to those who never sought the other world. Welcome to Momentary Zen with Zen Garcia. Visit www.fallenangels.tv. You're listening to Revolution Radio.
Hello and welcome, everybody. Thank you always for joining us for another live broadcast. Tonight is the 81st episode of the Ask Me Anything series that dates back, oh my goodness, several years now and was the brainchild of my daughter in law, Joy, when she was answering a lot of emails for me and typing basically the same information to various people over and over. And so we decided to start the Ask Me Anything show series, which has been greatly beneficial and much of a blessing for all of you. And it's also giving us a chance, whereas it was near impossible to answer and reply to all of the emails that were coming in daily. In this format, we have this chance, this opportunity to not only to answer, but to interact and have fellowship with all of you. And again, we thank you for joining us as a family of Christ and being able to discuss and share and um, discourse on all these incredible discernments and things that we have all learned together. Let me uh, let me check the make sure I have the questions for this evening's show. Um, okay, maybe message to me, but let me check that again real quick, and hopefully, give me 1 second, everybody. All right, but every show, I mean, you guys just ask some very in-depth and very precise questions, and I mean things that I'd never considered, and which certainly makes me have to be on my toes in regard to truth and the confirmation of it. And many of you are confirming witness to the discernment that the Most High has led me to. And, out of the mouths of two or three witnesses shall the truth be established. And certainly, as witness, we are that for each other, which is such a really incredible thing. I'm going to start with this, and this is something that my good friend Brandon and I were talking about just a couple days ago. And we were talking about a passage from the Gospel of Thomas, chapter 39, and verse 39. And let me pull it up because I want you to consider this. Because when we really thought about it, this is really mind blowing to consider. And, in the gospel, we have the red letters, which signify that these are the words of Christ. And the things that he says are, without a doubt, very important. But this is one of those apocryphal texts which should be highlighted in red. Certainly, it is written as if Christ, well, these are like the sayings of the Messiah. And these are the things that were considered, not just for the masses. Like in the book of Ezra 4, he was told after they were given permission to recreate all of the holy scriptures, all of the ancient manuscripts which had been destroyed and burned within the fire when Nebuchadnezzar stormed Jerusalem, was basically allowed to enter in. Because if you know about the true narrative of the story, it was the angels of the Most High which opened the barriers and gave the army of Nebuchadnezzar entrance. And that was the only way that the Babylonians could overtake. And it was because the Israelites had fallen to sin themselves. And so, without a doubt, Yahuwah has the power to save and also, to condemn. And depending on your stance and where your heart is with him, that's how he's going to proceed. And so, um, oh, this is actually not verse 39. Even though this is one of my favorites, it says, Jesus said, the Pharisees and the scholars have taken the keys of knowledge and have hidden them. They have not entered, nor have they allowed those who want to enter to do so. As for you, be as sly as snakes and as simple as doves. And that is a passage which is reiterated in the book of Luke. And if I find this, I'll read it specific. Oh, here it is. Actually, it's verse 23. And but just going back, the passage in 39, the Pharisees have hidden the keys of the kingdom and not even taking and learning for themselves. They just hoard it to hide it and to keep it from the masses. And they don't entertain the knowledge that they have and are privileged to hold. It's like the Vatican archives, all that information, all that truth there, and yet the deeper at the higher levels in the Vatican and also in the Masonic secret society, churches, fraternities, sisterhoods, they worship the devil. They are of their father, the devil, the wicked one, and they take blood oath to honor and worship the library, which is absolutely foolish because you put yourself at enmity with the creator, your maker, and your father. You know, we are the children of the Most High, and he loves us like, like we are his toddlers. And so we're going to start with this and then we'll go into the questions. And then we'll save, the half of the show for, uh, and I will be doing a book giveaway this evening. Haven't decided on the question yet, but when we get there, we'll definitely make available something, and we'll see what kind of questions you ask as to so what we can dictate what book to pass on to all of you. But in verse 23, the Gospel of Thomas, it says, Jesus said, I shall choose you one from 1,000 and two from 10,000, and they will stand as a single one. So this is the family of Christ. This is the sheep, the elect, the true believers. And when you figure out the mathematics behind what Savior Messiah says here in this verse, it is absolutely astounding as to how few, the minority of truth seekers, the seekers of lost paradise, those that are the true wheat, the true sheep that hear his voice, how little that remnant is. And so we're going to look at the mathematics of this, but I want to, before we do so, share with you the very beginning of the Gospel of Thomas and why I think people should consider these writings. Because even though they're excluded from the Gospel, and you know they were found with the Dead Sea Scrolls, the Nag Hammadi codices, a full extent extract of these writings. But in the very beginning, it says, these are the secret sayings that the living Jesus spoke, and Didymus Judas Thomas recorded. Who is Didymus Judas Thomas? That is Yeshua's stepbrother. He was the younger son of Joseph, the uh, the carpenter, and he and James were the two children of Joseph that were closest in age to Christ, and they grew up knowing him better than anybody else. Because imagine this is your stepbrother. You grow in the same age. You are basically like the best of friends. Like my grandchildren, Ella and Ezra, being just a year apart, and how close they are. And so, these kids growing up together, Mary, the Virgin Mary, was their mother. And so they knew them better. And Thomas knew Mary and his brother Christ more and more intimately and deeper than most others. And so, who better to write down? And two of his stepbrothers became his closest apostles. And so, I think you should consider what we're going to be bringing forth here. And he said, just a couple of the first verses, and he said, whoever discovers the interpretation of these sayings will not taste death, meaning that you will be gifted with the salvation that Christ, defeating death, brought and extended to the entire world. Remember what John the Baptist said: behold the Lamb that takes away the sins of the world. He was the Passover lamb, which The blood smeared on the doorpost is what preserved the Israelites from the curse of the death of the firstborn, which was brought upon the Egyptians and even their cattle. Number two, Jesus said those who seek should not stop seeking until they find. When they find, they will be disturbed. When they are disturbed, they will marvel and will reign over all. And after they have reigned, they will rest. What is the deeper implications of that? Those who seek should not stop seeking until they find. What is that they find? The seeker of lost paradise may seem a fool to those that have never sought the other worlds. And so we are looking for lost paradise. And what is lost paradise? It is our home. It is that place that Christ said, I go now to prepare a place for you. And he said he would return to come again for us. That unless the days be shortened, there should be no flesh left. But for the elect's sake, the days shall be shortened. And so, what we're about to go into, the elect's sake, the number, consider that. Just a couple more passages and then we'll get to that. And so when they find, they will be disturbed. Why is it disturbing when you find? Because truth is sometimes just awesome, spectacular, and very scary. It can be frightening, especially when you come to the truth of the enmity between the seed of the woman and the seed of the serpent, that there is a group, a bloodline, who born of the devil are dedicated to evil, and they have been planning, plotting, and believe in the divine right to rule over all the masses. They think that they are our rulers and that they can do whatever they want, including just slaughtering the masses, slaughtering the innocents, that there's no repercussions for them because they have the divine right to rule. And the devil teaches them that all power, control, and that comes with asserting wealth over time and generation. They, think about it. They print the money that the governments borrow and pay interest upon. I mean, that's pretty powerful. That is, uh, as far as the ultimate Ponzi scheme, there's nothing which trumps that. So just when they are disturbed, they will marvel. Why will they marvel? Because seeing truth, it is absolutely mind blowing. Even understanding biblical cosmology and that we've been lied to with regard to the shape of the earth and to the dynamics of the way that water works and how it always settles in a level all the way to the horizon, that oceans are not curved, that we do not live on a globe, and that the world is not a sphere. How marvelous is that? That's a pretty profound discernment to come to. And you have to consider that 97% of the people refuse to even look at this subtle truth. They think that it's all madness, lunacy, and that we are in folly when the ignorance resides upon them, and that even the rulers, so called rulers of the world, the globalists, They hide this on plain sight. Hide this in plain sight. Look at the banner, the flag of the United Nations, the seat of world government. And it shows you the azimuthal equidistant projection map of the world and how it truly is laid out. And yet they laugh at everybody else that buys into the deception. While they know the truth and they hoard it, they mock and laugh at everybody else because the world and the people are so stupid that they would buy into their charade and accept it as truth. All right, just a little bit more, and then we're going to go into the questions here. We'll just do this last one. 3 is a good number, Father, Son, Holy Spirit. So the third one. Jesus said, if your leaders say to you, look, the Father's kingdom is in the sky, then the birds of the sky will precede you. If they say to you, it is in the sea, then the fish will precede you. Rather, the Father's kingdom is within you, and it is outside you. When you know yourselves, then you will be known, and you will understand that you are children of the living Father. But if you do not know yourselves, then you live in poverty, and you are the poverty. Boy, now isn't this significant and right to the point that the seeker of lost paradise, if you do not know truth and you do not understand the creator and the creation and your place within it, you have nothing. You're lost. You're, the blind leading the blind out there. Again, the propaganda, the brainwashing, the indoctrination that leads people to think they know what they're talking about, yet they have no idea as to even what the truth is. This is the madness. I mean, people, it's the diary of a madman, is what people, scientism and following the truth of all that they say, all the kids gathered around a globe in the middle of, you know, elementary school and kindergarten, and oh, you live here. It's all madness. And so most people do not know themselves, and they are not known. They're part of the lost. They're not numbered with the found, those that are found that understand that the kingdom is within. They are living in the poverty of the world, which is connection to the matrix of illusion, deception, and delusion. And they walk around as zombies with no idea as to where to go to find truth or who to ask for assistance and guidance. Because there's very few that have the eyes to see, the ears to hear, and the mind to understand. And so let's consider this. Let's go back to that passage in verse 23, the Gospel of Thomas. Jesus said, I shall choose you, one from 1,000, two from 10,000. So let's, and I am not great with mathematics, but I am going to try. And maybe somebody that's smarter than me, I'm a word man, not a numbers man. My son is definitely a numbers man, understands all that, can break it down, and this would be very simple for him, I'm sure. Um, but let's do that. Let's do the math. Divide 2 by 10,000. I think is how you do it. And so that number is 0.002. So not even 1% of the world, 1% of the population. I had said, 97% were in delusion and caught up in madness, but it's a lot worse, according to the words of the Messiah, which, if this were included in the Bible, this would be red letter. So let's multiply that by what, they say that there's 7 billion people here in the world. And we looked this up. This is like 9 zeros. So let's do this. 7 billion people, and multiply that by the 0.0002 that we just received from dividing 2 by 10,000, gave us less than even 1%, two hundredths or 2,000ths of a percent. We take that number and divide that by the 7 billion, and we get 1,400,000 people, which, the population of the United States of America is said to be 300 million. I'll be right back and take a sip of water. So think about that. Right now in the world, according to the words of the Messiah, out of 7 billion people, 1,400,000 that have the eyes to see, the ears to hear, and the mind to understand. So what is that? That's like I think there's that many people in the suburbs of Atlanta. I think that is. Let me look that up. So yeah, we're gonna move on. But I think this is profound. I think this is something that people should consider. All right, so okay, according to the Atlanta Regional Commission, the 11 county Atlanta region added 66,730 residents between April 2022 and 2023, bringing the total population to 5.16 million. And so consider that in the entire world, you have like a quarter of the population of Atlanta as being truth seekers. Not just truth seekers, but truth knowers. Is that not mind blowing to you? That's pretty mind blowing to me. And so if you don't know what I'm talking about, I'll just post this in the chat. Again, this is verse 23 from the Gospel of Thomas, which is said to be one of the oldest manuscripts ever found. And that it was, found with a lot of what were the secret teachings. Oh, D. Smith mentions the Georgia Guidestone and how they wanted to reduce the population from 7 billion to 500 million. And that is the number one agenda, um, as far as, what the elites want to do with the global 2030, the World Economic Forum, and that whole push. C Blue in the chat asks, "Is that how many you taught then?" And I always taught that the elect was but a few. I didn't know it was that few. I mean, that's, considering, because when I told Brandon about that, we broke down the numbers and we were like, can you imagine? I mean, this is 1,400,000. That's that's not a lot at all. So, but again, even we are told in the scriptures that um, the elect is but a few. And I can actually let me pull up one last thing, then we're going to go into the questions. And this is from Second Ezra, which there's a passage there which talks about the elect being a small minority as well. So let's see if we can find that. Okay, here we go. And I always like to go to the scriptures to get confirmation of the truth. I'm not trying to tell you that this is just me, but this is what the Most High has revealed to the prophet. So let's here in Second Ezra or Fourth Ezra, we have the same thing revealed. It says there should be very few left per adventure in an innumerable multitude. That's the fourth Ezra chapter 7. And in chapter 8 of 4 Ezra, it says this. Consider this as well. And he answered me, saying, the Most High hath made this world for many, but the world to come for few. I will tell thee a similitude, Esdras, as when thou askest the earth, it shall say unto thee, that it giveth much mold whereof earthen vessels are made, but little dust that gold cometh of. Even so is the course of this present world. There be many created, but few shall be saved. Few shall be saved. And so, again, uh, chapter 7, 4th Ezra, verse 70, there should be very few left per adventure in an innumerable multitude. And so, this is again not thus saith Zen. This is thus saith the Lord, the Most High. And so, something to consider. Because again, I'd always tell all of you just how blessed and privileged we are that the Most High has really given us the eyes to see, the ears to hear, and a mind to understand. And I know it's because you, like myself, have dedicated yourself to truth. You have you have committed yourself to the kingdom, to the study of the scriptures, to coming to the truth of the word and how the Holy Spirit has revealed unto the prophets those things which we are now in consideration. Think of, chapter 1 in the book of Enoch, how he wrote for a distant and remote generation. Okay, and so, all right, I do have a list, and I'm just going to do a few of these questions, and then we're going to just take live questions. Because, I'm already burned through 1/4 of the show. And so I want to definitely commit, especially with what we have just, what I just brought out for you in consideration. So let me just answer a few of these questions, and then we're going to, the next half of the show, we're going to take all live questions, and I'll be monitoring the chat room. But just a few of those that are on this list, because I do want to honor, the people that do send and take the time to send in questions, which are a large number of you, and we appreciate that. All right, so let's go ahead and get into this. In the first question, why does the river Euphrates have to be dried up at the end for the nations to war with Israel? That's a really good question. And that has to do with the book of Revelation and also the book of Enoch. Let me see if I can do a quick search here. Just to give you the exact verse. It's in the book of Revelation. And the Euphrates is mentioned in as one of the four in the book of Genesis as well. So very important. But in Revelation 9, in verse 14, it says, saying to the sixth angel which had the trumpet, loose the four angels which are bound in the great river Euphrates. And we see in the book of Enoch also, it speaks about the angels that are bound in Dudael. Dudael. Let me see what actually that means. If there's an explanation for this word. Okay, yeah, here we go. Dudael is a place described in the book of Enoch as the place of imprisonment for fallen angels such as Azazel and Semyaza. It is described as a bleak and grim place with an entrance located to the east of Jerusalem, covered in darkness that the imprisoned angels may not see light for as long as they are in there. The Lord said to Raphael to cast Azazel hand and foot into the darkness and make an opening in the desert, which is in Dudael, and cast him therein. There is limited information online on Dudael as a place. Dudael is Hebrew. It means of Dud is kettle. cauldron or pot, and El, deity, divinity. The cauldron of God is the place of imprisonment for Azazel, one of the fallen angels, which Semyaza, again, the word Sem, Yaza, that means my name is Aza. And so Semyaza and Azazel are the same angel. They are the angel Samael, the angel of death, who led the rebellion against the Most High and tempted one third of the angels to fall with him. And again, it says here, and again the Lord said to Raphael, bind Azazel hand and foot, and cast him into the darkness, and make an opening in the desert, which is in Dudael, and cast him therein. And place upon him rough and jagged rocks, and cover him with darkness, and let him abide there forever. And cover his face that he may not see light. And on the day of the great judgment he shall be cast into the fire. Now, remember also the book of Enoch speaks about the imprisonment of the wandering stars for what would be 70 generations. And it's interesting because Daniel also speaks about this 70th week of Daniel. And so, one last with regard to this. Dudael is also implied to be the prison of all the fallen angels, especially the evil watchers, the entrance of which is located to the east of Jerusalem. The way this place is described, Dudael is sometimes considered as a region of the underworld comparable to Tartarus or Gehenna. Now, what people don't understand about Dudael, which is the cauldron of God, this is the bottomless pit. Remember that the north, which is the Hebrew word saphon, it means the secret place of God, the hidden place of God. This is what Enoch describes in chapter 18 as seeing the place that has no covering, no firmament above it. Why? Because that is the opening which leads to the realm of the Most High God. And it has no ground beneath it, because that is the hollow earth entrance to the bottomless pit. That is the realm of the fallen angels, what we call hell or Hades or Sheol, Gehenna, that this is in the north. And if you want to know the truth of this, you have to read my 19th book, Paradise, The Sides of the North, and the Mount of the Congregation. Because I give an explanation of how it is that Satan, Isaiah chapter 14, that he gives us an exact description for where the throne of the Most High is situated, and also where the bottomless pit, what is called the abysmal chasm, or in the Celtic, Hvelgamur, the navel of the earth, that this is where the whirlpool Charbardus is located at the northern pole, at the center of the earth plane. And that it is this hole, this large chasm, which sucks. It's like the earth breathes. This is like the blowhole. If the earth were a whale, this is the blowhole where it takes a breath and then exhales a breath. And then when it takes a breath, the earth swallows all the oceans of the world, drinks them. And then when it exhales, the Earth spits out the water in a geyser. And this is what causes the high and the low tide. And the scientists, they say, oh, it has to do with the moon, and the moon is pulling on the tides. It has nothing to do with the moon in that regard. And the moon is not even large when you consider the true dynamics of the earth. And so this is why it says that the Euphrates River will be dry in the time of Revelation, because the kings of the north, they will come and cross over and attack Jerusalem, attack Israel, because the river is dry. And it's interesting that right now there are videos on YouTube talking about how the Euphrates has dried up, and that the northern countries, especially Turkey, that because they have dammed up the river, they're not allowing the water to get to the southern countries of like Iraq and Iran and others, the Mesopotamian valley. That it's all dried up and it's just a dribble. And they have discovered very ancient cities and artifacts all throughout the region because of the the land drying up in this regard. All right, we'll do two more. We'll do three, just as we did three with the sayings in the Gospel of Thomas. All right, so let me find the questions. Okay, here we go. All right, so the second question, and then we're gonna take all live, and that way I can maintain my focus on the chat, and I can bring forth what you guys are speaking about and commenting on. And I do want you to, after the first hour, to really share with me what you think about what I said in regard to Christ saying, I will call you one from 1,000, two from 10,000, and how in a world of 7 billion people, that is 1,400,000 believers. Which, I mean, yeah, that's a lot of people, but in the scope of everything, that's a very small minority. All right. Number two, people call the famous people the GOAT, the GOAT, or greatest of all time, which is supposed to stand for greatest of all time. Do you really think it's the year of the GOAT, the Baphomet, and people are being tricked? Oh, that is a really great question, TB. And yes, I do believe that people are being tricked with regard to the greatest of all time and how they call the goat that. Because remember, all sin is ascribed to Azazel. And they released this goat into the wilderness, and it's a symbol, it's a representation of Azazel. Why? Because when you look at some of the embodiments of Satan, he was known to take on in disposition what is one of the Greek or the Roman gods, Pan. Pan. And Pan was a satyr. And the satyr is a humanoid that also is half goat. And that this god was said to be like the Baphomet, that he was in the shape and took on in disposition what looks like a goat. And there's mention of this also in the book of Jasher, I think it is, where it makes mention of Zepho, um, and how he had killed one of these creatures. And even the Minotaur is like a satyr. It's like a bull, half bull, half man, which a satyr, being goat like, is similar. But yes, you have to remember that the Baphomet and the goat, even in the scriptures, we are told that the sheep are a representation of the people of God, and that the goats, they are a representation of the wicked one, the children of the devil. Let's look at that real quick. This is also specific to the end times. The parable of the goats, and the goat and the sheep. Let's see. Let me see. Here we go. In Matthew chapter 25, verse 32. And these are great. These are perfect for exactly what we are talking about. And so here, when the Son of Man shall come in his glory, and all the holy angels with him, then shall he sit upon the throne of his glory. And before him shall be gathered all nations, and he shall separate them one from another, as a shepherd divideth his sheep from the goats. And he shall set the sheep on his right hand, but the goats on the left. Then shall the king say unto them on his right hand, Come, ye blessed of my Father, inherit the kingdom prepared for you from the foundation of the world. For I was 100, and ye gave me meat. I was hungered, and ye gave me meat. I was thirsty, and ye gave me drink. I was a stranger, and ye took me in. Naked, and ye clothed me. I was sick, and ye visited me. I was in prison, and ye came unto me. Then shall the righteous answer him, saying, Lord, when saw we then thee and hungered and fed thee, or thirsty and gave thee drink? When saw we thee a stranger and took thee in, or naked and clothed thee? Or when saw we thee sick or in prison and came unto thee? And the king shall answer and say unto them, Verily I say unto you, inasmuch as ye have done it unto one of the least of these my brethren, ye have done it unto me. So, again, those that are numbered with the elect, they are the sheep. Then he says to the goats, Then shall he say also unto them on the left hand, Depart from me, ye cursed, into everlasting fire, prepared for the devil and his angels. And so, again, the devil and his angels, they are connected to the goat. And so you never want to, take on in symbology especially a lot of those musicians and actors, they wear the Baphomet shirt, they wear the goat stuff, and they're connected to the devil because that's who they worship. That's who they are affiliated with. All right, we're at break. We'll be right back, and we'll continue on for second hour.
I love motherhood more than I could have ever imagined. One of the most important things to me is nurturing a strong foundation in Yahusha's character in our children. That said, I made sheets that went over the fruits of the Spirit, the armor of God, the 10 Commandments, and creation days. Each day at breakfast, we would go over these and then read books like Cat in the Hat that just felt so void in meaning, but they loved the rhymes. I looked everywhere for rhyming biblical principles and couldn't find any. That's when I decided I would make them myself. Praise God, we now have our first book, Eliana and Ezra's Journey Through the Fruits of the Spirit, a first in a series. Every morning we now can continue to build strong principles even through rhymes, and I wanted to offer it to the babies in your life too. Please go to Sacred Word Publishing and search Fruits of the Spirit to get your copy. Or you can go to prophecyforchildren.com. Thank you so much.
As a bookstore for truth seekers, it's our goal to make ancient manuscripts which were once held captive by secretive institutions available for public consideration. In our generation, where wisdom has increased as Daniel the prophet foretold, we have access to many of the testimonies our early church brethren were persecuted for preserving. After being hidden for centuries, these manuscripts have been leaked from various sources throughout the earth, and it's our goal to gather these sources into printable form to make available for all who seek the ancient way. If you're looking to deepen your studies of the biblical narrative, find these ancient manuscripts and more at sacredwordpublishing.com. Your partnership with Sacred Word Publishing goes further than the publishing of ancient manuscripts and weekly video content.
You also make a huge impact across the earth in orphanages in Myanmar, India, Uganda, and Kenya.
Your support is crucial for the development of the ecclesia of real truth seekers.
We thank you for joining us in hosting Secrets Revealed, Momentary Zen, the Digital Readers Club, Ask Me Anything series, and other shows that have helped lead so many to the truth of salvation.
To become even more involved, please visit patreon.com/sacredwordpublishing, where you can partake in exclusive, interactive, patron-only content and help us continue shining the light of love in this darkened world.
choice to decide if you want to be a warrior or a victim. Denial is not a choice anymore. Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com, the #1 listener supported radio station on the planet, not giving up. Revolution Radio. All right. Thanks for listening while we took that short break here at Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com. And now we're going to get back to your host.
Okay, welcome back, everybody. I just want to thank you all again for joining us, and I am going to go ahead and go into live questions because there's so much good stuff going on conversation-wise in the chat room. And first, I just want to congratulate you, Dee Smith. She says that my grandbabies are precious, and yes, I would most certainly have to agree. I'm very blessed. They are just the greatest joy of my life, besides Justin and Joy. And she says I'm going to be a great grandmother soon. So congratulations to you. That is so awesome. And she quotes that children are a blessing from the Lord, and without a doubt, the greatest blessing, wet new soul coming into the world, the hope, the opportunity, the blessing, especially when that child has parents to lead them, to guide them, and to show them, and to make them seekers of lost paradise themselves, to give them that kind of guidance. And also wanted to answer Jamali. I absolutely, without a doubt, do not deny or disregard the importance of the moon in agriculture. I'm just saying that the moon does not regulate the tides, and it is the abysmal chasm, as Mama, as somebody in the chat room made mention of the Rupus Negra, the magnetic mountain located at the center of the Earth plane, that it is the whirlpool surrounding it, which, as I said, drinks the waters of the ocean for 6 hours and then expels them in 6 more hours, and does this changing every 6 hours. So twice a day, the high and the low tide are regulated by the abysmal chasm, the navel of the earth. And Jamali also says the full moon can draw the water up by 10 feet or more. And I do agree that there is some attraction there, but in regard to the high and the low tide, these are things that are done by the breathing, the inhalation and the exhalation of the earth, that the earth is very much alive, and that it is even made mention of in the book of Enoch as bringing accusation against the fallen angels for the evil that they had perpetuated and released upon the earth. And that she, what we would call Gaia or Mother Earth, that this is just a further extension of what is the feminine aspect of the Godhead, the Holy Spirit, that she being the mother of all the angels and the mother of all of us, that she was standing up for her children. And that Christ even said in Luke chapter 7 that she was his mother, that wisdom was uh, I forget the exact verse, but worthy of all her children, something of that nature. But welcome everybody. It's so good to see all of you again. Oh, Rolando says when you start the full moon to plant cycle, it starts to diminish, even though plants do grow more at night than they do in the day. And somebody had made mention of root plants. And we know without a doubt that the light from the moon is different from that of the sun, and that the light from the sun, it's not reflected from the moon. The moon has its own light, and the qualities of its light are different. The properties of its light are different than that of the sun. Whereas you can use a magnifying glass to focalize the sun's radiance, the brilliance of the sunshine, and you can create heat, you can cause fire. That this is not true for the moon. That when you focalize, magnify the light of the moon, it actually makes it cooler. And so the light of the moon is cooler in essence and has different properties than that of the sun. And so, yes, I do not at all discount the way that the moon affects plants and certain plants, and that the essence of the moon is said to be held and contained within certain plants, and that this is what causes their effects and their properties. And so, all right. So, those of you that would like to ask questions, just put them in caps in the chat room, and I am going to monitor and I will answer them. Hebrew Hawaiian says that in First Enoch chapter 17, verses 1 and 2, that this is where Enoch enters the underworld through the chasm at the north to begin his journey through the underworld. And yes, and he gives us a view and perspective of that and tells us as to, again, the north being a place where there's no firmament above and no ground below, but just again, the portal, that this is where Jacob's ladder is located, that the angels ascending and descending on what is the ladder of, the angelic ladder. The Enoch also shares with us the portal that he goes through in order to be brought before the word of the Lord and before the throne of the Most High. He shares with us that story as well, and how he was so frightened, so scared, and so just shaken with the awesomeness of what is the throne of the Most High, that he had weak knees. He wasn't even able to stand. He was just frightened that, he would almost soil himself. And, of course, that's the way I would feel. Uh, imagine being taken up in and through the heavens by the angels and leaving the earth and seeing it all laid out before you. Oh my gosh, that would be so frightening. I remember one time in a lucid dream that I was floating and willing myself to go towards the moon, and I got so far away from the earth. It was exhilarating, but it was also uh, just overwhelmingly um, awesome, spectacular. So much so that I woke up and I was so excited that it put me back in my body. That when you have a lucid dream and you have to keep your body in composure in order to be able to hold on and to maintain the dream. Um, and if you get too excited, you immediately are pulled back into your body, and that's what happens. But, for people that do learn to lucid dream or hold on to a dream when they're within a dream, that if you can maintain your composure, that you can certainly extend it. But anyways, we have a question here from Rick. Have you done any research of the Ziz bird mentioned in Psalms 50:11 and 80:13? That's a really good question, and I have read there's a great deal mentioned about this bird in the book of Second Enoch and also in the legends of the Jews and the creation, the story of the creation narrative. And so you can go to that source to find more in regard to the Ziv bird, but the Ziz bird. But I don't remember, off the top of my head, a great deal as to what was being mentioned and what was being cited in regard to this particular creature. I think there was something to do with his wings, almost like the phoenix, where its wings protected the earth from the sun's rays or something of that nature. I will definitely revisit that, though. But yes, I do remember that in the legends of the Jews in Book 1, there's mention of this particular creature. Hebrew Hawaiian asks, in First Enoch 67, where do you believe these waters of healing for the elite that are warm but will become cold are located? That's a really good question, and I am going to refer back to an episode of Yellowstone. Crazy. I actually just watched this series after seeing 1883 and 1923, which were lengthy movies, and I had no idea that it was connected to the Yellowstone movie, but it was, and so I watched it, and I found the series to be fantastic. But anyways, within it, Kevin Costner, after he is shot, he goes and takes a journey on horseback to where these warm springs or hot springs are located somewhere in Yellowstone. And I've actually visited the hot springs in Yellowstone and also in Wyoming, and other places in Colorado, Arizona. And I actually had a book about all the hot springs that you could find just off the beaten path when traveling through the West. And those are some of the most incredible experiences. I remember on my 23rd birthday that I was at a hot springs, Cougar, it's called Cougar Hot Springs or Terwilliger Hot Springs, and this was located in Eugene, Oregon. And there was a depiction of a cougar that had been carved into the stone. And this hot spring was 7 layers that the cool water ran down the length of this redwood that had fallen. And the hot springs coming up at the top of this mountainside, it flowed down and intermingled with this the coolness of this spring water. And there was 7 pools, and the top 3 were very, very hot. The first 2 to the point where I think it would be dangerous for people to get in, but some people actually did. And it was terribly hot for me. But the third and the fourth pool were perfect. And what was intriguing to me, and that I didn't know until later, but we were out there after the sun had gone down, and there is this stuff called foxfire, which is this wood that glows green. And so surrounding uh, this hot spring was this foxfire, and it would give off this eerily green glow, and the steam just coming up off of the water. It was fantastic, and definitely one of the best evenings I've ever spent. We stayed there until the morning, and this was in between a Grateful Dead show, and we spent 7 days in this particular place. And what was awesome, we went to um, a group of us. We took a van full of people and went to the local homeless shelter, and they gave us these boxes of food. And then we went back out to the rainforest, into where we were camping out in this Terwilliger Hot Springs area, and we opened up a free kitchen. We put all of this food together, and we opened up a free kitchen, and it lasted for 7 days while we were all out there in between what was the show that took place in Shoreline, California. And a week later, there was another show in Eugene, Oregon. And in between, we stayed there at this hot springs in Terwilliger in Eugene. And it was an incredible experience. And there was actually 2 other people that had birthdays there the same day that I did, August 19th. And I wrote a whole poem about it. It's in my 3rd book. It's called Cougar Hot Springs. But I talk about the full moon and everything, and it was beautiful. But I think that the hot springs are the question. I mean, the answer to the question that you're asking, Hebrew Hawaiian. I think that hot springs, in and of themselves, that the way the warmth of the water that there's even a place here called Warm Springs in Georgia that um, President Eisenhower would come and visit, and that the waters were said to be healing. And remember, he had polio, so he was partially paralyzed. And they created this entire Warm Springs institution to assist people with disabilities. And I actually went there to learn about my independence and how to achieve it with my paralysis. I went there for 6 months for occupational therapy. And so, Dr. Herbalist says, I know about Foxfire. It's a very interesting as far as the way that this glows. Phil Henry says, I'm going to take a drive down and check it out. Yes, it's in Eugene, Oregon. It's one of the most incredible places I've ever had the privilege of spending time in. It's called Terwilliger Hot Springs. It's outside of Eugene, Oregon. And go in the fall when the leaves are changing, all the yellow leaves. Beautiful, beautiful. Oh, Brick asked what year. This was 1994 is when I was there. And there were a bunch of people there. As I said, in between the shows. And I was actually hitchhiking. I got a ride. Me and a girl named Delaney, we got a ride from Chicago to Las Vegas with one of her friends. And then we hitchhiked. We got rides after the Grateful Dead shows from Las Vegas to Shoreline, California, which is in San Francisco, and then to Eugene, Oregon. We got a ride with the group of hippies that were in this white van, and then we got another ride from these other people to the show in Eugene, and then from there we went back to California for another set of shows. And then we got a ride from a guy in California. We met him at Vista Point in California, which is another really incredible place to visit. If you ever get a chance, there's 3 exits off of Highway 5 in California near San Francisco called Vista Point 1, 2, and 3. Well, the third Vista Point is a overlook that you can drive up to, and you can overlook, what is the ocean and the land, and just really beautiful, absolutely gorgeous. And whenever I was there, for the Grateful Dead shows, we would always make it a point to go to Vista Point and to camp out there. And a lot of people did that. So it was always a good time. There was always a large gathering of, what was a motley crew of hippies and uh, hitchhikers and just people that, love to hang out and do shows and share time together. And, we would stay in all these state parks and national parks and spend time in between shows. And there was no better life, than doing that. But let me take a sip of water. Yes. Thank you, Dr. Herbalist. Tea time. Yes, I'll be right back. All right. Yes, I know, Dr. Herbalist. I have to remember to. Uh, and now that the weather is getting cooler, I will definitely be doing more tea, and I will have it um, ready for me when I'm doing these shows, since I continue to lose my voice. Phil Henry says, I grew up there. Did you know Dusty? I'm not certain who Dusty is. I have met several Dusties at different shows. He says he was at every show. Possibly, I did a lot. I did over 50 shows in between 1990 and 1994. There were 18 during the spring, the summer, and the fall. And then I would take the winter off. And I'd spend my winters in Jackson Hole, Wyoming, which, if you ever get a chance, definitely go to Jackson Hole, Wyoming, and just experience the land and the creatures. There's no better place in all of America, in my opinion. The way that the Teton Mountains come up straight from the valley floor and then shoot 14,000 feet into the sky. And then directly across, there's this sleeping Indian mountain that looks literally like an Indian with his arms crossed and a feather headrest uh, pulled back like he's laying across the landscape, almost like a giant Indian. I mean, it's really uncanny the way that this Indian looks. And the Snake River there is, or it was, the one of the cleanest rivers. You can see the trout. I used to fish for the trout there, and you could see them in the waters. I mean, that all the way down to the bottom until the depths just make it all disappear. But Jackson Hole is an incredible experience. When I was living there, there was only 5,000 people living there, and it was just a town on the edge of the wilderness. It was the only town in between what was Wyoming and Montana, where West Yellowstone, um, that was the entrance into Yellowstone National Park. And then Jackson Hole, Wyoming was the entrance into Grand Teton National Park. And there was just massive wilderness in between there. And that was one of the places where I actually had seen and experienced a whole family of bald eagles sitting together in a tree. It's one of the few places in the United States where the bald eagle roams freely. Along with, they now have the wolves and the bison, and there's red-tailed deer, antelope, elk. There's 15,000 elk that spend the winter there and are fed by the Teton National Park, and so it's a really incredible experience. And the elk, when you see them all gathered together, there's a circle of what are the elder elk, and they have huge racks. And they come there, they're not afraid of, humans, because they're given food throughout the winter and they're taken care of. But you can see what are the elder elk, the ancestor, the what are the patriarchs and the matriarchs of the elk tribe, or the elk, all the elk that are gathered, and they're so elegant, such massive and beautiful creatures. And they fight, they compete against one another when they are in their rut. Johnson asked me, if we revolve around the sun, how come our days and nights don't flip? Well, we don't revolve around the sun, and that's why our days and nights don't flip. That was exactly something that I had considered in the same way that you did, Johnson. Because I thought about, well, if we are if the earth is moving around the sun as they say we are, how come in 6 months, when we're supposedly on the other side of the sun in our revolution, shouldn't the side of the earth that was in darkness now be in light, so that the 12 hours of day and the 12 hours of night flip completely opposite? And yet there's only 1 hour of daylight savings time to moderate the shift in season. And so it does not at all make any kind of sense. Because, if we are moving in revolution 365 days around the sun and we're at a different place according to the time of the year, every quarter, every 3 months, the light and the darkness and where the shade is, all that should be alternating by a quarter portion. And yet this does not happen. And so that in and of itself, that's an entire chapter in my book on the flat earth as key to decrypt the book of Enoch, because that is something that I thought about. Why are the seasons to the point where you do not have this 12 hours of day and 12 hours of night flipping opposite? And it's because it is not the earth which is moving around the sun, but it is the sun which moves back and forth between what is the Tropic of Capricorn and the Tropic of Cancer. And so Enoch describes, and very eloquently does he, about the sun moving back and forth between these two tropics. And he describes the sun beginning its movement between the third and the fourth gate, which is where the equidistant mean is located, where the equator is found. And the equator divides the circle of the earth exactly in half, so that when the sun is located above the equator, the night and the day are exactly 11.999 hours. And Enoch describes this. He says that every portion, the sun and the night and the day, they change by 1.3 hours, 1.3333 hours. And so each time the sun moves 1 month towards the Tropic of Cancer or the Tropic of Capricorn, it takes 91 days for the sun to go from the equator to the Tropic of Cancer. And this is the inner part of the circle of the earth. And so it's the sun which is circling around Polaris that causes the shift in seasons. And that when it reaches its smallest and tightest and most its shortest revolution, it will be near the Tropic of Cancer for what we call the midnight sun, the phenomena of the midnight sun. And this only happens on the longest day of the year, when the sun located at the Tropic of Cancer will actually stay above the horizon for 72 hours. And it will never set. And you'll see it circle from east to west across the southern skies, and then back from west to east across northern skies. So that in the morning it reaches what is the vanishing point, or should be the vanishing point, where we normally have sunrise, but it will continue to fulfill this circle, this revolution. And so the midnight sun and the phenomena of the midnight sun, it confirms that the sun is moving in a circle around Polaris. And that Polaris is the center of the earth plane. What Lucifer, or Hallel, the son of the morning, referred to as the mount of the congregation above the sides of the north. That this is where the throne of the Most High is situated. Remember, he said, I wanted to exalt my throne above the stars and the clouds of God, to be like the Most High. And so the sides of the north are where the firmament rises and comes together in union at what is the pinnacle, the apex of the firmament, the vaulted dome of the earth. And that this is where Polaris is situated. Polaris is located directly above the mount of the congregation, which is Mount Meru, or Mount Zion, Mount Olympus, whatever you want to call it. It's the magnetic mountain which causes all of the compasses to point north. What is called Rupus Negra, the black rock. And it is this mountain, this lodestone magnetic mountain, which has the abysmal chasm, the whirlpool surrounding it. And it's this whirlpool which causes the high and the low tide. Really good question there, though. Thank you for bringing that forth. And also, there's a book which we have available. It was written by a certain pastor. I don't remember his name right now, but he wrote Paradise, the North Pole, the cradle of humanity. Dayton Rogers asks, is the firmament circular or pyramid shape? The firmament is like a snow globe. It's like a dome. And as I said, the sides of the north, the firmament rises until it comes together at the north, which is, again, the northern pole. It is the zenith, the pinnacle, the apex of what is the vaulted dome of the earth. Thank you, Phil. Phil Henry says, I think that Zen's number for those that see Yahuwah is correct. I used to think if you knew the earth was flat, you would see, but almost no one will see the truth. It's so obvious, but they refuse to see it. Yes, I'm going to get a sip of water again. I'll be right back. Okay. All right. Hebrew Hawaiian asks, and I apologize. It's just even sipping water, my voice is just, I've been doing shows too long. All right, but we're gonna push it through. The question: when the U.S. military shot nuclear warheads at the firmament, do you believe that they chose Johnson Island because the firmament is so much lower here in the South Pacific than anywhere else? That's a really great question and really good insight. And I'm going to say that I think so. I'm not sure exactly where Johnson Island is located, but if it is in the southern latitudes, then yes, I think that and I also think that this would be a way to test the elevation of the firmament at the different latitudes, that we can bounce radio waves off of the solid structure of the firmament in the same way that they have done with radio and television signals. That it's obvious and it is known that the firmament is a solid structure, that it is impenetrable, and that you can bounce waves off of it. And so, for somebody that is a lot more intelligent than me, and that understands how to do this exact thing, I do believe that you could find out the height and determine the elevation for the firmament by using radio waves and by testing to see how far and how long it takes you to get a signal by bouncing it off of the firmament at different latitudes. Oh, sorry. I apologize, everybody. My voice is just not holding up. All right, but let us continue. All right. And Hebrew Hawaiian says that Johnson Island is just south of Hawaii. Now, I believe that Hawaii, and because it is part of America, are y'all close to the equator? Because remember, for those that don't understand about the firmament, the way that it is structured, that we have the celestial equator located directly above what is the regular equator of the Earth. And that the reason that the stars seem to circle in the opposite direction is because of an optical illusion. That because the firmament is so much bigger in the lower half and what is the southern portion, it gives us the perspective that the stars are circling in the opposite direction. But again, it's only because the firmament is so much larger below the celestial equator that this is how we perceive it. Okay, we do have confirmation that we are very close to the equator and to the international date line. Thank you for confirming that. All right, I want to continue with, let's see. Thank you, Phil. Bless you as well. Do we really need to know how large the North Pole area is? Uh, and Jason says that I think it may be much larger than we are told. Remember that Admiral Byrd said in an interview about the North Pole that it was larger than the continent of North America, that there was a huge amount of area there. And was he, as he said he was, able to fly into the interior of the earth? I mean, is that how big the hollow earth entrance to the interior of the earth is? Because we also have the story of the smoky god, which tells the story of the two fishermen that were able to, um, they were able to navigate on rivers that went into the interior of the earth. And that going through the earth and meeting these giants, that they were able to come out near the South Pole. And so I do believe that there are rivers that go all the way through the interior of the earth and that can spit people out at the southern extremes, or what we call the ends of the earth. Thank you, Ken. I appreciate that. In regard to what's up with the flat earth, just a lot of people come into discernment on it. And if you are on the fence in regard to this issue, I would just ask you to be open-minded and do this one thing. Just go and test for the curvature of the earth with a laser pointer. Even if you do it over 1 or 2 miles, you should have 8 inches the first mile, 32 inches over the second mile, inversely squared. And what you'll quickly find is that curvature is non-existent. And that even with the dynamics of water, that water cannot take on a curved shape. And that the earth being spherical is totally impossible because water cannot adhere to a ball. And people do not live upside down at the bottom of the so called globe. And if you were to go to the southern so called South Pole, you could not come out at the other side because all you would be as you would be at the ends of the earth, you would be at the Antarctic extremes. And that's nowhere, it's not connected to the other side of the so called pole. And so just test this for yourself. This is the one thing that I did to confirm that yes, the earth is a plane as it is described within the scripture. And that it is stationary. That, we are not moving at 1,037 miles an hour as they tell us, as science declares. Which if you examine it, that is faster than the speed of sound or a bullet shot from a pistol. The Earth is not even moving at 1 mile an hour, much less 1,037. So, and again, for those that are still on the fence about this, I wrote the book Flat Earth as Key to Decrypt the Book of Enoch to bring forth all of what I learned in the book on the courses of the heavenly luminaries. And as I said, the movement of the sun back and forth between the Tropic of Cancer and the Tropic of Capricorn, this is what causes the change in the seasons. That the shortest day of the year is when the sun is above the Tropic of Cancer. The longest day the shortest day is when it's above the Tropic of Capricorn. The longest day, the Tropic of Cancer. And as we are about to experience in 3 days with the autumnal equinox, we're going to have exactly 12 hours a day, 12 hours a night. This is when the sun is moving back down from the Tropic of Cancer towards the equator. And reaching the equator, it will cross over into southern latitudes. And so that will begin the beginning of spring and summer for the outer circle of the earth. And this will be our fall and our winter. And this is, just the facts of the matter. You can test them, check them out for yourself. And again, they say that the midnight sun, that this happens at the South Pole. This is absolutely not true. And this can be confirmed because the sun is moving very much faster when it is its outer extremities, and the days pass very fast in southern latitudes. All right, thank you, everybody. We are at the end. I appreciate all of you, love all of you. We'll be praying for all of you and your discernment. And always keep an open mind because we are still learning and there is much to glean, much to understand. We don't even know the secrets of the earth, much less that of the heavens, as the Messiah tells us. Be blessed all. I love all of you. It's always a great pleasure, a great honor to be here with you. And thank God that my voice lasted, even though it was challenged. Until next time. My good friend, Make Stupid People Famous. Love your name. And isn't that the laughability of it? Be blessed all. Good night, Dr. Herbalist, Christy Frost, Tammy, Ken Johnson, Phil Henry, all of you in the chat. Sherry, we love you all. Be blessed. Good night.